Hey, dear listeners, we're back. We promised we would be, and holy shit, we've made it to 2 years of this podcast. Well, there's only one thing to do there. Isn't that right, Gonzo, old buddy?
Cue the music! Hello, I am Gonzo the Grady.
And I am Rizzo the Rat.
Welcome to the Muppet Theater. Tonight, we bring you fables of old.
Old what?
Old, just old stories.
What, we couldn't afford new?
No, I mean, yes. Listen, these are old stories everybody knows and loves.
I don't know, seems like a scam. I mean, you buy a new tape and you get old stories everybody's already heard.
Oh, will you be quiet?
Hi, and welcome to Itchy Retelling the Podcast. Yay!
That'll work. Okay. We are the podcast where we explore old ways old tales are made new, and oh my god, we've actually been making this thing for 2 years?
I know, right?
I am your host, Jasmine Garcia, who's a little baffled, but hey, we did it. In spite of strikes and Draculas and, frankly, a whole lot of real-world stuff that should have stopped us, we made it this far. And joining me today are...
Here to support my unbidden whatever NB cousin Gonzo, it's River.
I am just here trying to figure out what that weird little guy's name is, but mine is Grady.
Hello, this is Miss Piggy, the star of this film. No, just kidding. This is Charley.
That was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And in tribute to the fact that the thing we're about to talk about was only ever released on VHS and therefore in not the best of quality, here is Leif Bradshaw appearing on his phone mic for this podcast.
You sound fine, buddy.
Phone mics are the VHS of today.
I guess so.
God.
That's a sentence. Today we are continuing the tradition of anniversary episodes being explorations of why my brain is broken this way. Because we obviously started with The Little Mermaid, again, 2 years ago, which, as I said, was basically baby's first hyperfixation for me. And then last year we started our journey through Once Upon a Time.
It's still coming for you. Second season's coming any day now.
Yes, for our 100th episode, we decided we were going to do it every 50 episodes, basically, just to maintain some level of sanity. So I decided to kind of just go through my personal timeline. It's just like, yeah, this'll work. So we are going to be covering the little-known, but very near and dear to my heart, Muppet Classic Theatre. And if you have been here since the beginning, you might recognize at the very beginning of this special that I used the first lines of it for my first promo for this podcast. With that said, basically, Muppet Classic Theatre was a direct-to-video Muppet special in which the Muppets play out 6 different classic stories. And so, the way we're going to do this time around is we're going to talk about each story with each segment. So, instead, to start us all up, what is everyone's connection with the Muppets?
Muppets, my beloved. I have never shut up about the Muppets. I have been on at least 3 different podcasts talking about the Muppets, including this one. So, my connection with the Muppets is that my parents are fucking dweebs and nerds, and so I have had the Muppets in my life since I was a small child. I got introduced to Star Wars, and then 5 seconds later, the Star Wars Muppet episode.
As is right and proper.
And for that, I have never known peace.
I didn't really grow up with the Muppets much, but...
Given that Miss Piggy impression, that is so surprising.
I was very into, as a teenager, Steve Martin movies, Bill Murray movies, a lot of which are directed by Frank Oz. And as a teenager, I considered him my favorite director, and I wanted specifically to get into the Muppets to learn impressions of his performances because I adore him and wanted to emulate him. And I was in an abusive relationship when I was 19, and when they were screaming at me, that would be the time to log off and have something to do. I was like, well, I was meaning to work on these Muppet impressions. So it just started becoming something I would do whenever I was feeling bad. I got into that habit because of that. So it became very, very important to me. I have previously guested on the official Tough Pigs podcast, Frog Kissin' Gals. They have a different official podcast now, but talking about the ABC sitcom. I have done Muppet voices in many different things. I used to go to DerpyCon in Morristown, New Jersey with a Fozzie Bear puppet because Morristown was very close to me, so I was just being lazy. I'm like, no costume, I'll just throw a glove on. And usually when I did that, I'd get like a tepid reaction. Some people were afraid of puppets and would like not like me being there. But at DerpyCon, for some reason, they went nuts about it. They started inviting me to perform on stage as Fozzie at all, like, the official, like, DerpyCon staff shows. And so the next year, I was like, this has to become a higher effort costume. So I, like, shaved the top of my head and went to the convention as Frank Oz.
Oh my god.
Nice.
And every time I would bring the Fozzie puppet to a con, inevitably someone would come up to me and start doing the worst Kermit voice I've ever heard. So I decided to bring a Kermit puppet in my backpack, and if anyone tried to do that, I'd be like, oh good, here you are, come on, we're and through that wound up getting a video, which is still on my YouTube, of Aurelio Voltaire from Billy and Mandy, the goth musician, doing the Kermit while I was Fozzie.
Oh, the When You're Evil guy, right?
And it's so easy when you're evil. This is the life you see. The devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm evil, and I do it all for free. Your tears are all the pay I'll ever need.
His Kermit is insane. It's like one of the best ones I've heard. I recommend you look up that video.
It's
But,
surprisingly harder to do than people think, because Jim Henson had such a unique voice.
It's just what Jim Henson would sound like if he drank caffeine. When people do a Kermit voice, I feel they're always doing a combination of the Frank Oz voice from Muppet Babies and Ernie, which is a little more of that, forward sound in Sesame Street. And
Yeah, it's a bit
Kermit
more
is actually
stuffy in comparison.
Yeah, versus Kermit is actually a very natural voice, and the way to do a Kermit is to kind of sound like you're not really doing a voice, you're just kind of a little bit throwing that part into your inflection. Sorry, I talked for too long. Next person's turn.
No, that's
than you
so
might
cool, though.
Your commitment is unbearable.
Waka waka. I get it, you said bear.
I am the only bitch on this podcast who can't do a fucking voice. Jesus. All right.
Wait until you hear my gonzo.
Oh, God.
I am, as the kids of today would refer to as an old. I was a 1970s kid. I grew up watching Sesame Street. I was watching Saturday Night Live. I probably shouldn't have been, but I was one of the 5 or 6 fans of the Land of Gort sketches in the first season of SNL. And when the Muppet movie came out, I lost my goddamn mind about it. And I still have a copy of the original soundtrack on vinyl, and I won't say where because it's mine, you can't have it.
That is a stellar fucking soundtrack.
Quick
Also-
question. Who didn't lose their mind about the 97 or the 1977 Muppet movie? Who didn't lose their mind?
79.
I got
Whatever.
to the theater in the original run. That's where I'm going with this.
I'm just impressed by the deep cut fan connection of actually being aware of the short-lived Land of Gorch segments from the first season of SNL.
I was just so glad that my parents were going to bed before SNL came on.
Well, people are aware of them. There's that movie Saturday Night now.
I was gonna say, that's what they were referencing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Belushi calling them the mucking Fuppets because of how much he hated sharing stage time with them.
Uh-huh.
And it's a shame, too, because while I was watching Saturday Night, it's really a shame they had such clear disdain for the Muppets, because Saturday Night was kind of trying to display it as this is a very similar chaotic and anxiety-inducing energy as the Muppet Show.
True.
They could have coexisted peacefully, but they were too up their own asses.
One of a few attempts before the original Muppet Show from Jim Henson to prove that his Muppet characters could in fact work in a more adult-oriented TV programming field. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's the original inception of the Muppets as a troupe, of the Muppet Show, is making puppet content for adults, because it's an art form. There's no reason that it needs to be exclusive to kids. Kids can't appreciate puppetry the way, like, when a character moves its eyebrows, a kid will just think, yeah, because they have eyebrows. And I'm thinking, okay, where do the fingers go that they can both puppeteer the mouth and the eyes at the same time? And how much, like, to have that much muscle control to be able to do both without it affecting the other as well.
Charley, speak for yourself. I was freaked out whenever Muppets moved their eyes.
Yeah.
Hard to beat being an OG fan following the Land of Gorge segments, but I'll do my best as a kid who was born halfway...
playing Frank Oz.
Yes.
Exactly. Holy crap. But I'll do my best as a kid born halfway through the 90s. So oddly enough, it's kind of fitting that I'm guesting on an episode talking about this Muppet special in particular, because this was actually one of the first ever pieces of Muppet content I ever came across that wasn't Sesame Street. In fact, what's interesting is this project is such a product of VHS releases that this was one of 2 VHS cassettes that my parents had taped together on a composite blank VHS tape along with a sing-along. So this was my introduction to an awful lot of Muppet characters, believe it or not, was Muppet Classic Theatre. It was actually my introduction to quite a lot of these stories as well, was via the Muppets performing them. So because of that, this holds a very special place in my heart, because even though I can acknowledge with hindsight maybe this isn't the most incredible thing the Muppets have ever done, but I owe it a lot for getting me into the Muppets in a way that was probably different than how it was for a lot of other kids of my time. Because, I didn't watch the first Muppet movie until quite a bit later. In fact, I actually had seen Muppets from Space a couple of times beforehand because, much like Muppet Classic Theatre, there was a lot of focus on Gonzo and Rizzo. So...
Yeah, and the MC was always Kermit prior to the 90s.
Yeah.
But then Jim Henson died, so... Right,
as well as Jim Henson died. Frank Oz was super busy, so he couldn't take over. But during Fraggle Rock, Dave Goelz and Steve Whitmire kind of became like a comedy duo. So suddenly, Gonzo and Rizzo, characters that have never really interacted, were lifelong best friends, and they were the ones introducing the acts as if they were Kermit.
It's a natural extension. A lot of the funnier Fraggle Rock interactions were between Boober and Wembley, so...
Yeah, and it's putting 2 people that were in the original Muppet Show at the forefront as the first thing you experience.
Exactly.
Yep, and this really was kind of the era where Gonzo and Rizzo were everywhere. I mean, obviously you had Muppet Christmas Carol, you had Muppet Treasure Island. Charlie, you wouldn't happen to know anything about those 2, would you?
No. That also brings up something, because... There were Muppet Show sketches and Sesame Street sketches where they retold old books, but that wasn't really their brand, and then suddenly it started becoming so. And my theory on why the Muppets' grand return to the cinemas after the passing of Jim Henson was retelling classic literature was because of the success of the Muppet Babies, which that was
1,000%.
sort of the premise of.
Makes sense.
It was partially the Muppet Babies, partially the as I was talking about on Ellie's podcast. There are 2 different types of Muppet movies. There are the Muppets as themselves movies, which is the original Muppet movie and Muppets Take Manhattan and the 2011 Muppet movie, as well as I think Muppets Most Wanted. I think we've settled on that's a Muppet as themselves movie.
Nope, it is definitely them as themselves. It is a direct sequel, technically.
The opening musical number is that it's a direct sequel to the previous one.
Yeah.
But then the other half of that is the Muppets Playing Characters movie, where they are embracing the fact that the Muppets are an acting troupe first and foremost, which is The Great Muppet Caper, Muppets Treasure Island, Muppets Christmas Carol.
And Rizzo usually plays himself despite whatever time period it is.
Right. But the ease of that is the baby's first cultural dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you've someone who's grown up with the OG Muppets. Maybe you have the concept that Jim Henson has died, but all of a sudden Kermit sounds a little different. It's Steve Whitmire does a pretty good job, and the new guy sucks. But you can tell there's a difference.
Yeah.
But having the Muppets play characters rather than playing themselves, you're willing to give that difference a bit of leeway, because you're
this
like,
is what Bob Cratchit sounds like.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't Kermit. This is, who Kermit is currently playing,
Uh-huh.
And
which always
I was about to say, that extends back to the early days of the Muppet Show, in fact, when they were still figuring the characters out, to the point that they had to retroactively film new sketches to justify them, because when Frank Oz first took the Fozzie puppet, his voice was a little different than what he ultimately settled on, and so they had to go back and film scenes justifying why does his voice sound a little deeper and gruffer.
Does this sound like John Wayne to you?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and so, again, my grand thesis about why everyone on the internet is clamoring for the Muppets doing Pride and Prejudice, or Ryan Johnson, I know you won't, but please just give us a Knives Out Muppets crossover. Let Benoit Blanc meet Kermit!
Hey, Frank Oz was in the first Knives Out, so...
Right, but I think Ryan's been asked about it, and he says you won't do it. But, come on!
You had Frank Oz right there as the executor. Come on.
What a weird cameo.
Yeah, well, Frank Oz appears in cameos in the weirdest places. I think about his one in Blues Brothers at least once a month.
Do you think John Belushi in that scene was like, oh no, this guy again?
I don't think so. But, again, so, the reason we were all clamoring for Muppets as character movies is because, again, I do think there is that sort of cultural acknowledgement of the dissonance of oh, yeah, Kermit's never going to sound the same and that's okay. Not to quote everything I said in Ellie's Muppet episode, but the Midgard of people who were trained under Jim and Frank are dying off or retiring. Yeah. We're losing that Midgard, and there's not really, there's some people who are still doing work on Sesame Street, but there's not that lower tier new generation of puppeteers who are learning how to do these puppets and learning how to do these voices, because no one wants to do on-the-job training, and also puppeteers are unionized. Congrats to Sesame Workshop for unionizing properly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But that Midgard is retiring and dying, and there's no one underneath them.
No.
Support Sesame Street, motherfuckers!
Editor Jasmine here. So we ended up going on a bit about how PBS is so under threat and Sesame Street might end up getting canceled after so long because Warner Discovery just dropped it. And there was this beautiful bit where Leif and River talked about how Fred Rogers saved PBS funding. But since then, Netflix and PBS have come to an agreement so that Sesame Street can keep on going on. And I say this with so much begrudgment. Thank you very much, Netflix, for saving Sesame Street from our psychotic administration trying to bring Sesame Street down. Please do not squander this goodwill.
Much like Leif, this was a regular feature in my childhood. I've said it before, I grew up with stuff like this from the Muppets. I was born in 91, so I've never known a world without Muppet Christmas Carol, and Muppet Treasure Island especially was a frequent borrow from our local library, alongside another adaptation of one of the stories we'll be talking about today.
Rumpelstiltskin?
Amy Irving and Billy Barty.
Rumpelstiltskin! I've been swindled!
Rumpelstiltskin. It's an enchanting, heartwarming story that will delight the entire family. Rumpelstiltskin. Put some magic back in your life.
I'm sure we'll talk about that eventually.
It's interesting to look at this and realize, even though this is definitely among the more kiddish Muppet properties that are out there, it still has a nice kind of middle ground between the extremities that was talked about earlier about Muppet portrayal. Because the thing is, if you think about Muppet Christmas Carol and to a lesser extent Muppet Treasure Island, it's mostly a pretty straightforward retelling of the story that just happens to have Muppets in it. But this is more like the Muppet Show, in which, or just other Muppet specials where the Muppets are trying to put on a production of something familiar, and hijinks ensues from them not always getting it completely right, but still doing their best. This is sort of a middle ground, I feel, between those extremes of Muppet adaptations. Yeah. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I don't know. It's really weird this exists. It's so weird to see low-budget Muppet stuff in the 90s, post Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. I am surprised there is not more history available on why this was made online, because
I'm guessing because this was also roughly around the heyday of the direct-to-video sequels. I know obviously the Obviously, the Muppets hadn't been acquired by Disney at this point yet, but, you know, they still had a pretty tight relationship between the fact they were almost merged, and then, of course...
All right, listen. I got a lot of thoughts about how this property relates to Muppet Vision, but we're not going to get into it yet. But more importantly, I think the other thing too is, again, it's in that weird 90s stage where they are having very close relationship with Disney. You know, they've done Muppet Christmas Carol. They still have to keep the lights on, and they are a business. So I would not be surprised if this was just like, fuck it, we can slap something together. This is relative. This doesn't require too many new jokes out of us. This is comfort food. This is comfort material. We can kind of do this stuff in our sleep. They banged it out, you know, in a couple of weeks. And sent it off.
Buy a new tape, you get old toys everyone's already hide.
Sounds like a scam.
We gotta pay for those new clothes somehow.
One theory on why this hasn't been redistributed is because Rizzo calls Disney's whole brand a scam at the beginning. Speaking of their relationship with Disney, Brian Henson really did not want Disney to make Muppet Treasure Island after they made Muppet Christmas Carol. Really? Because he was like, he kind of felt like Disney was getting the Muppets despite the deal not going through. Like, they kind of cheated and won anyway. And this is not a Disney VHS. This does not have, all of the ads on the VHS are for Jim Henson properties. I almost wonder if the reason they made a very low budget thing and put it out to the video market was to have something that wasn't Disney related. Something they were doing that was just Jim Henson Studios.
Credit where it's due, though, because the Muppets seldom half-ass what they do, even with what on paper is a half-ass project. And if you ask me, this is a pretty good example of that. And this is making me think we should probably talk about how they handle these 6 tales while we got time, eh?
Yes, definitely. Baby. So, all right. So basically, we have these little segments with some interstitials where Gonzo and Rizzo do some business and
please.
Oh, of course. So they do performances of the 3 Little Pigs, King Midas, the Boy Who Cried Wolf, Rumpelstiltskin, the Emperor's New Clothes, and the Elves and the Shoemaker. So we start off again with Gonzo and Rizzo introducing the special.
Gonzo's wardrobe? Fucks. This handshake is looking Muppet Vision. Why do I not look as good in those articles of clothing as this dumbass puppet?
Gonzo's always had amazing fashion sense, though, let's be honest.
I mean, yes, but there's a special, like, NB je ne sais quoi to this fit especially. Mm-hmm. And also, again, why don't I look as good in a sweater vest as Gonzo does in Muppet Vision?
I remember I wore a very similar outfit to this once just because it was clothes I had, and someone sent me fan art of Gonzo in the same, I drew Gonzo wearing your outfit. And that was before I identified as non-binary.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Gonzo is an NB icon.
Agreed.
Obviously. But yeah, again, it kind of goes back into why are we going to retell these stories? Everybody already knows them. And, you know, it's definitely something I've had to grapple with as someone who is so obsessed with retellings like this. So, again, the very first promo I ever did for this podcast is a little TikTok video in which I mouth along with Gonzo's lines here while I'm basically making a case for, no, there's value in not only retelling these stories, but exploring how they're retold. And
so what Jazz is trying to say is, fuck you, Rizzo.
No, I would never. I love Rizzo.
Me too. Just because we can't always afford new doesn't therefore mean we've run out of ideas, okay?
Yes, and also it's fun to toy with these old stories, goddammit. For example, they basically made the 3 Little Pigs about the patriarchal bullshit eldest daughters have to deal with. So what's everyone's connection to the 3 Little Pigs? I mean, I think just about every elementary school classroom goes over the 3 Little Pigs at least once. And I guess it's just because it's to show, hey, just because it takes longer to do a good job doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And also, I mean, you know, I've seen the Disney cartoon where they crossed over with Little Red Riding Hood, which honestly, I'm shocked more people don't do that. As well as its version on Sing Me a Story Time with Belle. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was basically a series where, you know, you had Belle and sometimes other Beauty and the Beast characters, and she was basically telling some kids some stories, but it was really just using old Disney short clips for it. It was cute, though. I remember liking it a lot as a kid. And also, Another reason my brain is broken this way, I distinctly remember in my second grade classroom, we went over this picture book called The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, which is essentially the big bad wolf trying to make the case is like, no, I'm the victim here.
I love
sounds
that one.
so familiar.
I love
Yeah.
that one. So fun.
It's like by a very specific picture book artist because he's got a very distinct style. And I can see it in my mind's eye, but I could not tell you the artist's name by the top of my head.
The author of Wicked owes him a lot of money.
Or he owes the author of Wicked a lot of money.
Yeah.
No, True Story of Three Little Pigs definitely came out prior to Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was an early version that I came across as well an awful lot in childhood and thought that one was quite endearing. I also saw one where they quite literally just reversed the species. I came across a version that was called The Three Little Wolves and the Big Bad Pig.
Yes! That's right. And you've definitely got some cultural reskins of it as well.
Oh, for sure.
My favorite of all of the various remixes of it is, of course, the classic Tex Avery cartoon and also American World War II propaganda, the short Blitzwolf.
Oh my god. Oh my god, they did a Three Little Pigs World War II propaganda thing? That's incredible.
Yep.
World War II was a hell of a drug.
You can look it up on Wikipedia, guys. I don't know if it's online, but I know that you can read about it there.
The Three Little Pigs saved by war bonds.
I don't know when I first heard of Three Little Pigs. I don't know. Probably before I was very good at forming memories. But
yeah.
I did a couple years ago watch Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater version, which I think this special owes a lot to. It kind of seems
definitely.
like the Muppets do Fairy Tale Theater. And before the Big Bad Wolf showed up in this one, I was like, I know it's not going to happen, but I am praying Jeff Goldblum reprises his role from Fairy Tale Theater. He is so funny in that one.
So does he play the wolf or something?
He plays the Big Bad Wolf.
That's amazing.
And he plays it, I mean, how'd you'd expect? He's Jeff Goldblum, but this is like before he was famous. So it's wild seeing him so Jeff Goldblum-y. Like the role seems written for him, but no one knew who he was, so that can't be possible.
Is it like Earth Girls Are Easy era Jeff Goldblum?
Earth Girls Are Easy era Jeff Goldblum doing modern Jeff Goldblum as the Big Bad Wolf. And
he just came out of the womb like that. Great.
Please find time to watch it after this. It's probably on YouTube. Billy Crystal is one of the Three Little Pigs in it. Yeah. And what's so funny is there's completely different acting styles from him to the rest of it, because everyone else is playing it a little cheeky. Maybe there might be some deliveries or whatever for adults. Jeff Goldblum is not gearing his performance towards anyone. No demographic in mind.
Except himself.
And at the end, the wolf is only mostly dead.
Yeah, and mostly dead is still partially alive. But Billy Crystal is playing it like he's reading to 3-year-olds in spite of what is going on around him. And at one point, he's doing this sort of voice, and he's like, "Hello, friends. I'm one of the pigs." And there's one point where another character, a lady pig, makes like a sexually explicit pass at him, and he does this bashful little school play, looking away and blinking his eyes, and I'm like, are you just incapable of recognizing the tone around you? And I saw an interview with Billy Crystal where he was talking about like telling kids that he's the voice of Mike Wazowski, and he starts like, and I'll do the Mike Wazowski voice for them. "Hello, kids." And I'm like, oh, that's just how he thinks you're supposed to talk to kids, I guess. But that's not what Mike Wazowski sounds like, Billy. I don't know if you've seen the movie.
Mike Wazowski is an absolutely fundamental part of my DNA. I am not the way I am without Mike Wazowski. Do with that information what you will.
Oddly enough, this version of the Three Little Pigs is, I think, one of the first versions I ever saw from Muppet Classic Theatre was this version. I mean, not that I had not had this story told to me before, almost certainly plenty of times as a toddler. In fact, I do remember there was actually like one of those, as a neurodivergent kid learning how to speak in a more unconventional environment for folks of my type, I had a learning phonics tape, and one of the tapes that they had included utilizing the story of the Three Little Pigs as a means to learn that. So that was the first version I saw. But this was like the first proper story-told version, so I always assumed for a few years that the pigs were, in fact, named Andy, Randy, and Sandy. So
I probably had some experience with Three Little Pigs as a tiny, tiny child. but also vaguely in, like, the first grade, kindergarten or first grade, it had to have been first grade. They tried to make us memorize stuff. My elementary school did one of those, like, plays where they tried to riff on all of the stories and try to do, like, little subversions here or there. And I was one of the 3 little pigs. And looking back on it, I'm going to try and not feel offended by that fact. But I remember being very grumpy about it because, A, I was, again, a recovering N-log, and I hated being dressed in all pink, and B, it had to have been first grade, because I'm remembering the elementary school hallway, because they also had to take our pictures for it, and I remember what hallway I was in, so it was first grade. And I think I, in general, strongly disliked everything about that, but it was something that I did, and there is photographic proof of it.
Oh my god.
I do not have access to any of it, so none of y'all are seeing it, but yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe you would have had a better time if you got to perform the song about how you'd better show me some respect.
It's so clearly trying to sound like the Aretha Franklin song.
Yeah!
Speaking of Blues Brothers.
But it's written as though they had a budget of $1.27.
Yeah.
You got a minute and a half!
I don't remember when I first encountered the story because, as previously mentioned, old. The main thing is the Tex Avery cartoon. I had to make sure I mentioned that because Tex Avery.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, all I know about the Disney version is the Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. And I remember one of the many, many, Disney pop stars of the moment TM CDs. One of their boy band groups did a version of it, and it sometimes pops into my head.
That's crazy.
I think it was like one of their R&B groups that they were trying to get off the ground.
And they scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
Yeah, and there's a version of that is it's a vaguely hip-hop-ish version of Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. It's actually not completely terrible.
Okay.
I mean, fair enough, but with that in mind, I could see why Walt said he didn't want to follow pigs with pigs.
Fair enough. Though I do find this particular version kind of endearing for some of its very Muppety subversions. Even just the ridiculously forced thing about how somehow the wolf forgets his most important line and has a completely different phrase, and then it's like, wait, that's not right.
A house made of bricks with an advanced security system.
No one gets
it already!
No one gets eaten in this sketch, but somebody does blow up, which means it ends as any traditional Muppet sketch should.
Yep. Right?
With Santa exploding.
Did you know that the people always trying to break into brick houses are always blowing up? Oh, that's a load
Wait,
up.
did Miss Piggy make a brick house joke?
Yes, because she's mighty, and she won't let the wolf hang out.
Yes.
Yep. The wolf did. Wolf did.
Well, no, he said, he saw the house and said, oh, it's a brick house. And she said, you're not exactly Mr. Petite yourself. And...
Oh, yeah? Well, you're no Junior Petite yourself.
Yeah.
As a big girl, I appreciate.
And my wife, who is a big girl, had never heard the song Brick House, and I had to explain the reference, and I sang a little bit of it, and she started smiling and said, that song's about me!
Aww.
That's cute. That's so cute. As far as Muppet musicals go, this is probably one of the less good ones out there, because it really does feel like the songs were thrown together real quickly. There are a couple that I like. I'm not really too keen on the Aretha Franklin ripoff they wrote for this one, to be honest. It's just way too repetitive, in my opinion.
I kind of like it, but you were right that obviously you can't beat Aretha Franklin. And in fairness, I don't think they're trying to. They're just trying to kind of do their own lesser version of it. But
yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It pops into my head quite frequently.
It is catchy, I will say that. It just kind of wore its welcome a little fast just because of the repetition. But I do like the idea behind it, because it would make sense if Miss Piggy is playing a character in this world that's run on this kind of old school type of patriarchal belief systems. Of course she'd clap back at it like this.
Yeah, the songs are no Paul Williams, but the experience... Brett McKenzie.
It is the same songwriting team behind Fraggle Rock, though, so at least they do know how to quickly write a musical number when they have clearly very little time to do so, because Fraggle Rock, I think, had like a mandate of one song per episode or something, and they didn't do a terrible job with that kind of situation.
I don't know a lot about Fraggle Rock because I've never seen it other than the episode where they had to address the fact that Richard Hunt died, and also the Ben Folds 5 music video that they did for Comic Relief.
That was great.
Where they did Do It Anyway, set with the Fraggle Rock characters. Or no, it wasn't Do It Anyway, it was somebody else. I think it was one of the other songs. No, it was Do It Anyway. I'm right!
It was.
The experience I had with the songs was my wife and I kept forgetting this was a musical, and we love musicals, so every time a song happened, we just started smiling because we were like, oh yeah, we're watching a musical, we forgot.
Yeah, it's one original song per story segment in this special.
Was a pleasant surprise.
You didn't realize it was going to do that?
No.
I for some reason, I just kept forgetting until a song happened that, oh yeah, this is a musical.
So funny. I feel like you can technically have a Muppet thing without music, but why would you want that?
Well, wasn't the original Sam and Friends just lip syncing to songs?
It was. Yeah.
So it's so much a part of their identity.
Yeah, though, goodness knows. River, you did make a point, though, about the unfamiliarity about the brother pigs, because it's also a running gag in this version of Three Little Pigs where Miss Piggy is all like, I can't believe those are supposed to be Moi's brothers.
Yeah.
I love Moi's. I love doing the English possessive on a French word. That's funny to me.
It's her thing. It's her thing.
Yeah, that's a pretty good Piggy. And that means a lot coming from me.
And who among us hasn't been in a situation where we're just looking at somebody that we know and must work together with, and it's just like, you can't be this stupid.
Right?
You cannot be the smartest person in the room, please.
Right? Yeah, no, you've definitely sensed that frustration in her quite a few times, just when she is the one who gets rid of the big bad wolf all by herself by launching the rocket. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I understand that. However, I have never believed once in my life that Piggy has gone, how am I the smartest person in the room? Piggy walks into every room knowing that she is the smartest bitch in the room, especially if there are other people in it. Whether or not she is, completely different set of issues.
Yeah.
So, this is clearly displaying her range as an actress, Sandy is clearly very different from Miss Piggy in many ways.
Though she does still have a pretty good Miss Piggy moment when the wolf is just like, you're supposed to say, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Are you suggesting I have facial hair, furball? No, I didn't.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no. I am on record of being not pro-wolf slander on this podcast, but it is quite fun watching this particular Muppety wolf being very bad at what he does. Like, his most dishonest and despicable plan is just copying the Grinch.
But luckily the brothers are dumb enough to fall for it and just think, he's here early.
A rather tight pinch, but if Santa and the Grinch could do it, so could the wolf.
Sorry, that doesn't rhyme. No points.
Oh, sad. Sadly, no.
Strange Pork should have been the dad.
Would have made the patriarchal comments funnier coming from him.
I think we can all agree the true moral of this story is, as long as you have a sibling that knows what they're doing, you can half-ass it and rely on them to bail you out.
See, that's the mindset that makes group projects in high school such a nightmare.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, I'm an only child, so I'm irresponsible for causing havoc and bailing myself out.
As an older sister, I am intensely grateful that my brother is not like this at all.
My oldest sister passed the bar exam. My middle sister, still older than me, has a doctorate. And I'm a YouTuber. So I guess in this instance, I'm the brothers.
But yeah, I do appreciate that, because as much as The Three Little Pigs is such a constantly retold story, it's not really about much that is interesting to people after a certain age. So I do appreciate they at least tried to make this version about something, which...
About respect women.
Yeah, we should be respecting women, and eldest daughter syndrome is real.
And also it gives it such a fittingly Muppety ending where instead of boiling the wolf alive, he's just launched into the air with a firework rocket and blows up. It's so perfect.
In a Santa costume.
So you're saying that he winds up as a wolf in Wolf-face!
Also, apparently this sort of thing has happened to the wolf several times before because his last words are, I hate it when this happens!
We missed what happened with him in Red Riding Hood, where she blew him up with fireworks.
There you go. Yeah, because there's a big bad wolf in so many different stories, not even just the Three Little Pigs or Red Riding Hood or a story we'll be talking about a little later. But
right?
Why does the Three Little Pigs endure?
I have no fucking idea. When you were trying to say what the moral was, I was like, wait, is there a moral? I don't even agree with you on positing what it might be. I don't think that. I guess the moral of the story is that bricks are good to build with. It's a weird story, and it's weird that we're still telling it.
Like I said, I do think it's at least partially about, because the first pig does straw, takes a super easy way out. The sticks are at least a little harder, but still relatively easy and not very sturdy. Meanwhile, the bricks, they take a lot more work, but it's going to be a more structurally sound house.
I think that moral is a thing that varies from telling to telling.
True.
Like, depending on how you tell the story. Like, if you tell the story orally, you typically cut out any interaction between, like, the three siblings. If you're trying to flesh the story out to, like, picture book length, then you put in all of the interpersonal dynamics between the siblings and the idea that, like, the two who take the easy way out tend to gang up on the younger one and gang up on the one who builds his house out of brick and thinks that it's a dumb idea and that it's going to take longer. But again, it varies from telling to telling. I see where that moral comes from, but it is not a universal constant, if that makes any sense.
And while I did make the joke about the moral, the actual moral here is don't half-ass it. Yes, sometimes you got a task that's going to be really difficult and annoying and time-consuming, and you're going to get bored as hell doing it, but just put in the effort, get it over with, get it done right the first time.
Here's why this story endures. Because parents grew up hearing it as little kids and think it's something they're supposed to read to their kids.
Yeah,
honestly, probably.
Tradition is peer pressure from old people.
You're not wrong.
Yes, it is.
And dead people, too.
Yeah, tradition is peer pressure from old and dead people.
You're not wrong. But, hey, we got this fun little short out of it.
Indeed.
And then moving on, Rizzo is like me in that he can barely contain his love for popcorn. And I do want to say before we get into the King Midas segment, I remember as a child, I asked my father, hey, who's Mr. Brando? And you know what he told me? He told me he was a bad actor, which gets funnier every year.
He could have been a contender.
That's a line from Muppet Treasure Island.
It is.
Good decade for Brando references for some reason.
Yeah.
Wasn't he dying or dead?
He died in the early 2000s.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So he's just old and decrepit. Got it.
Like, obviously, as I got older, I was like, wait a minute. So that is my father's hot take. Marlon Brando wasn't a good actor. Go figure. Mm-hmm. But going on to King Midas, what is everyone's connection to this story?
I was queer in middle school.
Percy Jackson.
No, said. Not said.
Yeah, I think I had it read to me in 6th grade at one point by a teacher. Or we all read it as a class. I don't remember 6th grade very well.
It's one of those, if you're into Greek mythology stories, it inevitably comes up.
Yeah, I was queer in middle school. I got into Greek mythology.
It's a running joke around these parts for a reason.
I think I was 8 when I found a copy of Bullfinch's Mythology and found out about it through that.
I think this was probably my first interaction with the story, but I also remember in 3rd grade, we read The Chocolate Touch. I don't know if any of you have heard of that one.
I haven't.
Yes. Okay, never mind. That was the one I read in 6th grade and where my familiarity comes from. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward retelling. It's just the kid's obsessed with chocolate. He turns his mother into chocolate by accident, and that's how he learns his lesson.
Fun fact, that is now a Marvel character.
I'm sorry, what?
There is currently a mutant, I believe his name is Martin, who has the ability to turn things into chocolate.
Did they rob this story?
He is a former roommate of the hero Escapade, who is a trans girl who has the ability to change places with people and steal their powers temporarily. But yeah, he turns things into chocolate, and she makes a comment about how she has gotten very, very good at detecting the intricacies of chocolate because he doesn't have control over what type of chocolate it changes into.
That's insane.
That cover is terrifying, but it's a terrifying moment in the book that's captured super well.
Oh,
I really like
it's
that
genuinely
cover.
I remember that was genuinely unsettling.
I know. I probably wouldn't like it if I reread it. But I remember I have very fond memories of that book now that you've reminded me of it. I'm like, oh, that was awesome. That was so good.
What I find fascinating about the fact that I did in fact grow up with a lot of Greek mythology awareness, in the sense that I was one of the many kids who watched Disney's Hercules a ridiculous amount of times and wanted to know some of the other stories, and then discovered to my horror the story I thought I knew was a lot darker and more horrifying.
And less related to Superman.
But this is another instance of that. This is the first version of the Midas story I ever came across, was this Muppet version. So I was disturbed to discover that the original Midas character was not a wholesome and lovable character like Kermit. He was in fact the reason why the Midas touch proved to be a punishment, because he foolishly thought it would be a gift for himself. So as opposed to Miss Piggy just kind of steamrolling him when Silenus offers the wish option. And Gonzo plays a great Silenus, may I also add. He's probably the best part of it.
Oh, 1,000%. It's Comrade Gonzo, my beloved.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, that commentary on royalty. Yes, that's so good.
Like, it is a nicer version, but it does sort of muddy the waters. Like, you could have just said fuck gender roles and let Piggy be Midas outright. Like, there was no reason. Like, there's no reason to make. Like, I think it's personally deeply offensive that it's Kermit. And.
Because in character for Kermit, he's disturbed by his quote-unquote gift, and he turns himself to gold out of frustration, which is what causes the moral.
You could have just said fuck gender, made it Piggy, because as it stands, it does have twinges of women be shopping.
Immediately after the Respect Women story.
Yeah!
Right? It's kind of ironic.
No, not ironic, it's gold.
There's one reason for Kermit to be here. And the reason for Kermit to be in here is Kermit hasn't been in it yet.
Yeah.
Fozzie doesn't show up until Emperor's New Clothes!
I didn't say it was a great reason.
I was so weirded out by the exclusion of Fozzie until the 1 hour mark, but the inclusion of a whatnot that is clearly wearing an old Fozzie nose and eyes.
There's no reason for Midas to be Kermit. Honestly.
Well, yeah.
It muddies the OG moral too much to have Kermit be Midas.
Yeah, Midas shouldn't be the voice of reason in any case.
What I do like is him freezing to gold in an iconic Kermit pose. That was
that is very Kermit core.
Like, he literally yells, I can't take this, and just grabs his head in frustration, and in the process freezes into a gold statue.
And somewhere Macaulay Culkin sees this and thinks, hey.
And I want that statue, wherever that statue lays.
Handshake on wanting the Kermit statue.
Okay, but circling back to the fact that Kermit in this was the one who turned himself into gold. Wow, we really should have seen A Very Merry Muppet Christmas coming. Kermit, we all love you. Please seek help.
Find a therapist. You can afford it.
Kermit, go to therapy. This is a threat.
You clearly feel very hopeless and have self-destructive tendencies. Please, Kermit, please.
The closest we get to, like, acting as far as Kermit doing something that Kermit, the real character Kermit, as so-called, would never do is threaten to sentence somebody to death for laying on the roses. And again, Gonzo makes a great call-out point as Silenus.
Wait, death for sleeping on roses? I need to think about what you do to litterers.
Silenus handshake the peasant from Holy Grail.
Strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government.
There's no basis for a system of government.
I was going to ask if you were going to do it in the Gonzo voice. Thank you, Charley.
I knew you wanted me to. I could tell.
See, now we've got to do Holy Grail but the Muppets.
and Kermit even acknowledges, I mean, I guess it is a bit harsh.
Right?
Yeah, making Kermit a king in a story like this specific version of a king makes no fucking sense.
Yeah,
no,
that's fair.
This feels like, again, this should have been like, Link or whatever. Or, you could have just said fuck gender roles and made it Piggy. Or...
Yeah, right? Like, she could have been absolutely feeling like she was on top of the world when she gets yet another musical number. This one's more classic musical theater flavored, the Midas Touch song that we get, complete with a kick line at the outro.
Or if you wanted to do a naive Midas, you could have done Fozzie. It feels weird and insane that Kermit is Midas, and it also feels weird and insane that Rizzo's the one telling the story.
Honestly, imagine if it was Rizzo who was playing Midas. That'd be interesting.
Rizzo would have no remorse about it.
I feel like that would have made it a little funnier. Like he was put under duress to relinquish the touch or something.
That could be funny. That could have been really funny, I'll admit that. Yeah, no, Gonzo was just a little busy being all, I am the star. Who knew? Which, no, you're not, Gonzo. You're great. And we love you in this.
I would even go as far as to say he's the GOAT. Ah, waka waka!
And it is fortunate in the end that they do manage to have the curse laid upon the king by the satyr pass over.
I was 100% expecting a satyr joke, and then I'm like, wait, this isn't Mel Brooks.
I'm putting you both into the walls, Cask of Amontillado style.
I would love to see Muppet Cask of Amontillado.
Not gonna call out this sketch.
It's Statler and Waldorf. Cask of Amontillado, but it's Statler and Waldorf.
That's good.
And if you want to go really deep cut Muppet, it's the Cask of Wilkins coffee.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
What, no punishment for this sketch particular, though? What, for the calling out the cheap special effect they use? Just that basic ripple dissolve that they use every time the golden touch happens?
Well, that's because the Muppets might have moved a little bit when they traded out for the other prop, and they wanted to cover that up.
Oh, I know. It's just funny.
It's a time-honored technique. You might even say it's golden.
Waka waka!
Meanwhile, Queen Piggy is Weekend at Bernie's seeing her.
That was funny.
Husband.
He's got such a lovely golden tan.
That was really good. Weekend at Bernie's the Frozen Midas. I didn't see that one coming, and it was really funny.
Using him as a weapon instead of karate chopping people was my favorite bit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, to be fair,
because those people sucked.
That royal jester was no Fozzie.
Mm-hmm.
No, God.
Why wasn't it Fozzie? I mean, I guess because Piggy's there, and Frank Oz only has so many hands, but...
It already lends itself to an issue that actually happens in the final story where it's clear they couldn't really dub in other puppeteers performing the characters they're supposed to voice when they're already performing as a different character in a scene. So that's probably why. Yeah. We'll get to that later, though. Out of all the tales, this is probably my favorite just in terms of entertainment value, but this is probably one of the less good ones as far as adapting it in a way that works for a Muppet cast. I feel like if they were given more time and more resources, they probably would have come up with an even funnier adaptation. Though what we do get some pretty good moments. I still can't get over just Gonzo's class commentary and the Royal Jewelers. I'll give you $3.50.
It's amusing, but it has no internal consistency.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up.
I like Gonzo listing off every currency he could think of.
Except the euro, because the euro didn't exist yet.
Yep. Also, the Slice-O-Matic ending.
Yeah. Let Kermit wish for world peace.
What was with the 90s in that joke? Because also makes julienne fries is also in Aladdin.
Right? I was thinking the same thing.
It's an old commercial slogan that people made fun of. Sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah, there were these stock jokes in the 90s that are no longer stock jokes. Like, hating mimes is an example. It's not in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a strange one.
Well, no place is perfect.
Anyway, so why does the story of King Midas endure?
Because we keep telling bitches about being careful what they wish for.
Because there are still greedy bastards.
What they say.
Yeah, it's really just that simple, isn't it?
It really does sum it up pretty well. Just a simple morality tale about being careful what you wish for, and that eternal riches doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to be fixed for you.
I would love to one day tell kids the story of King Midas and them to be like, people like that don't exist. This story doesn't resemble our reality. That's the future I hope for.
Please. Please.
Don't worry, Lisa. Nobody's that evil in real life.
Anyway. Exactly.
Oh, God. And then moving on, poor Gonzo is struggling with a quick change.
As all good actors do.
Whomst among us, indeed.
Once upon a time, there was a young shepherd who, in addition to missing his cue...
Rizzo! Most of you haven't heard Ella's. Rizzo is identical to the point where I think they should just hire her, my podcast co-host.
No, I've heard Ella's Rizzo. She's amazing.
My wife pointed out in this one, the sheep being the one that start panicking kind of muddies the moral, because it seems like he's just gullible instead of...
Yeah. The moral of what, by the way? We actually haven't said what the story is yet.
Yes, so it is the boy who cried wolf. So what is everyone's connection to that?
I've had to read it so many fucking times in elementary school to the point where I viscerally hate this story. I hate it so fucking much. I think it is an absolute insane premise. It may not quite be the origin of my hatred of fire reveal, but it definitely feels like a planted seed.
Oh, that makes sense.
I hate this story.
It is a story trope that's very hard to not make really forced.
Yeah, it's so annoying. When it pops up in The Day the Earth Blew Up, I want to strangle things. That is my least favorite part of The Day the Earth Blew Up.
I don't know. You can't ask someone when they first heard of a story that they probably heard when they were 4. Memories don't work that way.
Fair enough. Grady?
I read a lot as a kid. I don't remember when I first read this. I don't remember how many different cartoon adaptations. I just know that in this version, Gonzo is a shepherd who foretells disasters. I guess that would make him a Sybil shepherd.
I meant waka waka. I forgot I was changing that up for this episode.
As for me, yeah, this is another one of those things that pops up pretty frequently in elementary school classes. Because in fairness, and I'm going to jump the gun a little bit on the moral, like, yeah, it's probably a good idea to teach kids that lying is bad because no one will believe you. And I do distinctly remember the Happily Ever After Fairy Tales for Every Child version, where they really upped how much of a prankster he was being. Editor Jasmine here. Apparently I am dealing with some kind of Mandela effect sort of thing because I cannot find any evidence that that episode of Happily Ever After exists. Please just know I promise I am not crying wolf here. And it is worth noting, gang, that in most versions of this story, that shepherd does get eaten along with his sheep. So let's all at least be glad that in this version that does not happen to Gonzo, because that would have been horrifying.
Listen, you could have ended the sketch with somebody being eaten, as is tradition for Muppets not having an ending to things.
True.
The fact that nobody gets eaten in this sketch is actually a crime.
Well, they already built the wolf puppet, and it's not designed to do that, unfortunately. I love the wolf. I love the joke about adding dramatic tension by giving him 24 hours. And I love the wolf, like, posing for the portrait.
That was so good.
Dressed as Napoleon.
Why?
Right? And I will say that even though this is a very different take on the whole morality about the importance of honesty, I like how this is a different kind of moral that I do still think tracks. It's just not really true to the whole idea behind The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Because the idea of The Boy Who Cried Wolf is you don't make false alarms just to mess with people because then they're not going to believe you when something dangerous actually happens. Here it's more like, don't catastrophize every single thing that seems like it might be something dangerous, because then if something actually dangerous happens, people will stop believing you.
Or maybe you just have an anxiety disorder, but...
Yeah, well, I blame the sheep for egging it on, though, because they're the ones who plant the idea to his head.
They're prey animals! They don't know any better!
A couple rocks fall over, earthquake!
I do love how Gonzo always, hearing something and freaking out about it and no one believes him, sets up the wolf getting his ass stomped on by the big sheep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was Kermit as the mayor, was that a repurposed Bob Cratchit costume?
Probably.
I think so.
I will say, these townspeople are crazy. Kermit Mayor just should get a sign that says, I do not control the weather. Because, one of those bitches is like, I pay my tax dollars to prevent this. And I'm like, Kermit does not control the weather. Kermit is not Punch.
This is where I distinctly, especially remember, as I mentioned earlier, there's a whatnot, which is extras in puppets, puppeteered stuff, is the background characters. There's a whatnot that clearly has Fozzie's eyes and nose, possibly taken from an old Fozzie puppet that fell apart. He's always in the foreground of this one. Put him behind people. Like, skin is orange also. So, like, it keeps throwing me off and thinking I see Fozzie.
Also, this one gets a classic Kermit nose scrunch.
It does.
Steve Whitmire's good at the nose scrunch. He's not identical with the voice. He's got the nose scrunch down.
I will say that he's close enough to Jim's voice that sometimes I will hear recordings of both of their voices of Kermit back to back, and I can tell it's different, but it's kind of like the switch from Jeremy Irons to Jim Cummings during Be Prepared. If you know where the switch is, you can hear it, but it's so close that unless you're looking for it, it's not immediately obvious. At least that's my feeling.
I knew people who were older when the recasting happened, when Jim Henson passed, and they just refused to watch Muppet Christmas Carol because, like, they could not get used to that voice.
Wow. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I quite literally grew up with both voices.
Yeah, I grew up with both voices, so sometimes I get a little confused, but when I, like, think about it, I can tell an obvious difference.
Yeah, like Steve Whitmire's voice is a little higher pitched, for instance, but I will give him credit that he did do a good job filling in those shoes for quite some time. And indeed, I feel like Kermit is better cast in this one than he was in the King Midas story. Him being exacerbated, that feels like a Kermit role. Him being the leader and getting frustrated by everybody else.
Kermit is the OG perpetual cat wrangler. His job is, he is not immune to participating in the chaos, remember.
You know, Kermit, I thought you were the one person on this show who wasn't crazy.
Me not crazy? I hired the others.
But he's also very much like the wrangler of the chaos. He's trying to manage it as best as possible.
He is the patron saint of all stage managers.
Him, Handshake Scooter.
I was also about to say, out of the quota of one original song per segment in this special, I think this Boy Who Cried Wolf rendition has the best of all the songs, at least by virtue of it. It's easily the catchiest, in my opinion.
Yes.
Who Do You Think You're Foolin' is a catchy ditty.
Yep, and also, I guess the sky is falling. Wrong story!
But also, that chorus refrain line of, you pulled the wool right over our eyes too many times with all your lies, that's a fun line.
Very catchy. And yeah, I do kind of love how the sheep were just like, hey, maybe we don't do the ending we were supposed to do. And then Rose was like, but despite the protests of the sheep, the story was not over.
That was so good.
So instead we have a different, more cop-out-ish ending, to be honest, but it's still a funny ending where they just have a big Chad sheep in the herd who just shows up and tackles the wolf.
A big ram.
To play Go Fish with your sheep.
I would.
Yes.
I do think that if they made this today, they would have made the big sheep a female sheep instead of a male one, because then it would be an absolute unit.
Ooh. Oh, God, Grady.
Though the wrestler chanting during that scene, it did kind of get me giggling even as a little kid, though. Just seeing everyone going, Norman, 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 as it was happening. That even little kid me thought that was so funny.
It's the kind of ass-pull ending you could never get away with in anything but a Muppet thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but that doesn't make sense. What do you mean, really big sheep?
I love that I'm barely gonna need to insert any clips into this episode thanks to you guys. Thank you.
I love the sheep puppets. They've used the sheep puppets in a couple of sketches. They use them a lot in the Julie Andrews episode.
They look so snuggly.
They do. They're really good sheep puppets. I love them a lot.
Yep, they're fun. Even if they are kind of the source of all of Shepherd Gonzo's grief.
I love that Gonzo plays Go Fish with his sheep. How do the sheep hold the cards?
What do they bet on?
They're playing Go Fish, not poker.
I know a couple of games where there were stakes beyond just having a certain card, but okay.
Yeah, haven't you ever played Spy Fox?
We are a PG-13 podcast, people.
No, we're not.
Oh, I said fuck.
Dream, Harold.
I said fuck earlier. Do you want me to take that back?
No, we are not a PG-13 podcast. River is joking.
Okay. Then I will say it again. Oh, fuck.
I mean, it's not entirely the sheep's fault for every overreaction to Gonzo, because he also overreacts to when Rizzo brings up after the story is over that they're going to have an intermission. So
that is true. Which, this is where I learned the term intermission, actually.
Same. I also learned the term through this.
I feel like for this part of the podcast, we could do an intermission gag because it's been an hour and 21 minutes of recording. We could do an intermission gag, but it's just the da 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 da.
Or an even older one. Yeah. End of part 1. Intermission. End of intermission. Part 2.
Or a parody.
You know what?
Of
I will
the
throw in
Inquisition song.
the bit. I'll at the very least throw in Gonzo freaking out over the intermission.
Okay. Da 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 da.
My goodness. So Gonzo officially gets 3 plays in a row where he gets to perform one of the major characters, the thought occurs. Even an intermission couldn't stop him from breaking that streak.
Which also begs the question, why are there so few Muppets in this?
Probably because this was a very quickly put together thing and they didn't have a lot of money.
But they already have the puppets.
But do you have the right performers in the right balance? You know who would have also made a really funny Midas?
Who?
Sam Eagle.
On the Wikipedia, it says Frank Oz played Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Sam Eagle, and Animal in this. And that's wrong. He did not play Sam Eagle and Animal in this.
They don't appear in this at all.
Sam Eagle should have either been Midas or the Emperor and Emperor's New Clothes. Changed my mind.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think that was a contributing factor. Yeah, Frank Oz at the time was a lot more busy with directing, to the point that even in some of the Muppet movies, he didn't actually perform his own characters during the shoot. He dubbed in his voice later.
In Muppet Treasure Island, that was Kevin Clash.
For the most part, yes. But also, puppeteers are unionized, so you have to adhere to specific rules about when have them on the clock and all that.
Yeah, true. And in Muppet Christmas Carol, all of Frank Oz's characters never leave the location they're first introduced in.
Yeah, because Frank Oz was busy directing movies at the time. He couldn't always be there.
So that makes this actually the last time he did puppetry until Last Jedi.
Yeah, and so this is what I meant when I said that this Handshake Muppet Vision have similar energies of they're cute, silly little things that aren't going to change anyone's life, objectively, but like also have infected people in very deep and heartened ways. How many times have we referenced, you've got a minute and a half? How many times, this thing being the product of Jazz's, entire oeuvre as a creative.
Hey, you said oeuvre.
The Muppets are inherently just like a little thing that keep giving. There's something about the verve of both of these projects, of both this and Muppet Vision, that sit on the same bookshelf in my brain. But also the Penguin Orchestra. God bless the Penguin Orchestra.
Somehow they were able to get in tune despite their initial tune-up sounding like a real mess.
Yeah, they always do.
I guess they switched out their instruments with a Casio keyboard, though, to be fair, I think, judging by the sound.
Hopefully these penguins don't have a cannon.
So no playing 1812 Overture for them.
No.
Or trying to hold on to previous continuity.
That is true. Anyway, on to what I have said before, but still might surprise some people. My favorite fairy tale, weirdly enough. And this was, in fact, my first introduction to said favorite fairy tale. Let's talk Rumpelstiltskin. What's everyone's connection?
I have no connection to Rumpelstiltskin prior to this other than that there looming specter.
Insert the clip here.
Emphasis on loom, but...
Hey.
That makes Piggy and Cora the same character, and I think I hate that.
It does.
Apart from Three Little Pigs, this is my first version for all of these stories, apart from Three Little Pigs.
Wow.
I probably first heard of Rumpelstiltskin when I was a preteen or teenager and was like looking up things about King's Quest because Homestar Runner did Peasant's Quest and I wanted to know what they were referencing. I didn't know anything about it. I knew that guessing his name was part of it. And then the next I heard of or thought of the character would have been Shrek Forever After. And then, of course, I actually, until watching this, did not get that Cora's whole thing, her whole backstory, was a reference to the original Rumpelstiltskin story. Yep. I was like, that's what that story was referencing. Okay, while watching this.
It's just slightly hornier, because everyone on that branch of the family tree somehow ended up horny for gold. This video is not about Once Upon a Time. This podcast is not about Once Upon a Time.
Mm-hmm.
Though, according to this version of the story, you can get a license for spinning straw into gold.
Didn't know. I knew Mixopidolix, which also has a guess his name dynamic.
Is that on purpose?
Probably.
Almost
Could
certainly.
we make that argument?
Yeah,
Listen, you've already got to do a Batman month, so...
As with
Grady?
every other one of these, I don't remember when I first read this because, again, old. And the main thing I remember of it was, even as a small child, thinking, why is this idiot saying his name where somebody could hear him, even though he thinks he's out? Doesn't he know how fairy tales work? Some forest creature or something is walking past him while he's gloating about how the queen only has one chance to guess my name, and there's no way she's gonna ever in a million years think of the name Rumpelstiltskin, and then the thing goes to talk to the queen, and he's like, hey, I think you need to know this thing.
I would love to see a version where they actually just guess it. Was like
that would be so funny, but
because it's such a strange name.
Well, eventually we'll be covering the book The Rumpelstiltskin Problem, which is a series of 6 stories in which the author's main premise is this story makes no goddamn sense. I'm gonna try to make it make sense.
Speaking of Once Upon a Time, that they gave him this backstory where he was just a normal human man, and that was still his name back then. Every time they talked to this regular peasant and were like, excuse me, Rumpelstiltskin, I'm like, no, that's a goblin name.
It makes so much more sense for Gonzo to pick up a name like that, to play a part like that, quite frankly, than a regular person.
I'm playing a weird little man. Oh, typecasting.
Exactly. Gonzo was still best Rumpelstiltskin, easily. With all due respect to Robert Carlyle, of course. It's hard to beat that.
I will say, I do appreciate that the problem solving is finding the name tag on the clothing. As somebody who also went to summer camp for an inordinate amount of time, there are still articles of clothing in my wardrobe with the name tag label on it.
And also Back to the Future asked mistake to call him Mr. Ralph Lauren. This is a fairly straightforward Rumpelstiltskin, except the king's not an asshole because, once again, he is Kermit.
Yeah, this is a better use of your king as Kermit.
Oh, absolutely. Like, the whole thing is like, I'm lonely. Help me find a fairy young queen and be my queen.
No, it seems like, I was gonna say maybe the reason he's the king in Midas, despite the fact that he doesn't fit, is because, they want to see him in this role of authority in all these stories because he's also the mayor in the Boy Who Cried Wolf, but then that gets broken by the Emperor.
I also love pointing out, we have yet another Muppet Whatsit that I have not seen in anything besides this as the loyal royal advisor. I just remember thinking his design was kind of interesting.
Whatnot?
Muppet Whatnot, sorry, I prefer Whatsit. It's more fun to say. But
he looks vaguely like the anchor from Muppet News.
He does.
He does, actually. Yeah.
Except he's purple. I will say it is funny that we right away just get right into yet another form of Muppet-style fourth wall demolition with the, hey, can you get rid of this echo? Oh, it's depressing. Pressing. Kill the echo! Anything else, sire?
And just all of the Muppet ladies. Impressive they got so many, considering how few Muppet ladies we really have. Just
the Muppets have a gender problem.
I mean, to paraphrase Freckle from The Wondrous Gay Life of Caleb Gallo, there's a gender problem in Hollywood and in America. A sexism problem.
But yeah, I am impressed by what we get. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's admittedly not the most appealing thing, but gurgling Beethoven's Fifth, I mean, that's not something just anybody can do.
True.
No, that is genuinely impressive.
Can you gargle Gershwin, though?
That's the question.
Right. Love that episode.
Like some kind of Argyle gargoyle.
Right? But how about the courage of being willing to swim through a moat filled with alligators?
Yeah, no, genuinely that deserved a lot more respect than it got. That's the kind of lady you want to help you run your kingdom.
Alligators. Why do you think my eyes are so big?
Oh, God.
I love the John Denver episode of The Muppet Show. I think about it at least once a month.
Fair enough. And also, I just appreciate that we do let Piggy have her typical ego. It's just like, what's so special about moi?
Oh my goodness. I do also appreciate that we keep the asshole dynamic regarding the whole forcing the challenge of spinning straw into gold, except we give it to the loyal royal advisor instead, which is like, look, I got a whole castle of my own riding on this, all right?
Damn you, Timu Guy Smiley.
He does look an awful lot like Guy Smiley.
Oh, Timu! All of your dreams come.
But no.
Bullying
I
all of
have
you.
2 puns for this one, by the way.
Oh, I'm ready.
God, Grady!
Grady, fire away.
The first one is the solution to the mystery, like the Adam West Batman, is totally camp.
Ah, waka 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 waka!
And the other is Piggy decides that giving up her firstborn is the last straw.
Ah, waka waka!
That's dark, man. But yeah, it's also interesting we don't do the rule of 3 this time for the sake of the time condensation. The special no doubt we just get 2. We just get the pendant, and then it's immediately when you have a child.
Yeah, damn, Gonzo Stiltskin isn't wasting any time, is he?
He escalated quickly.
I mean, that got out of hand
really
real
got out of hand
fast.
But no, I do love Gonzo's Rumpelstiltskin costume.
Me too. I think it's delightful. It's so fitting.
Although, is his hair predicting Captain Jack Sparrow a little bit?
Wait, hang on.
I didn't think about that.
I don't want to think about it.
Also, him appearing in a burst of fire and smoke is admittedly pretty fun.
It is very Gonzo of him.
Yes.
I looked up, I didn't remember the costume, and I looked it up to find the images of the costume, and I saw him being compared to another pirate. Here is the image I found when I looked up Gonzo's costume. There's Blackbeard.
Oh my god. Oh my god. You're so
Oh,
right.
literally, this Instagram that posted this is called Gonzo versus Taika. He does
so well together.
He does kind of dress like Gonzo.
Fucking wow.
I mean, they're definitely similar levels of queer, no question about it. Though I think Gonzo is way less self-loathing about it.
Oh, duh. Interesting how we never see the baby. Were they trying to hide the fact it was a fig?
Probably.
Not again. Lads, not again.
And once we're kind of back to square one in terms of musical number quality, in my opinion, in that even though this song that we have for this special is pretty catchy, the repetition does get a little old after a while, in my opinion.
I guess that's fair, but I don't know. That's also another thing that pops into my head on a regular basis.
Well,
I
yeah,
watched this so many times as a kid.
The chorus is an excellent stem.
Gotta get that name, 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 gotta get that name. It is. And I find it fun, and there is, and like that one Letterboxd user says, that one weasel is having the time of his life.
Does it start with a V?
Yes.
Just the way he's shaking his whole little body throughout the chorus.
I like this song a lot.
And I love that this was one of those times where you actually do genuinely believe Kermit and Piggy are genuinely in love, because he's like defending her against everybody who's just like, well, send you back to the dungeon. It's like, no, hold on a second. Maybe you completely misinterpreted my want of someone special, but I know I have someone special here without the gold, thank you.
Right? That was such a wholesome moment. And I will say the musical number is helped by there's a lot more peaks and valleys of intensity, and we do have Gonzo just being such a delightful troll before the final chorus with,
you might as well forget it, because you're never going to get it.
And listen, I always love in Rumpelstiltskin takes of all the different names they go through. The Amy Irving version of it that we will definitely cover one day also does that. Hiawatha was an option on that one for some reason for her.
I want a version where they guess his name is Mixapitalik.
Oh my god, they definitely need to do that in a modern retelling. Although it'd be tricky to work out a modern Rumpelstiltskin.
Fair. I also love how offended Gonzo is on Rumpelstiltskin's behalf, that when his name is revealed the way that it is, he just forcibly ends the performance early by just yanking the curtains, even though he doesn't know how they actually work.
Gonzo gets a little too into character in this one.
Yeah, Gonzo has a lot of meltdowns in this one. You doing good?
But it's all related to things that happened to the character in a play that he had rehearsed for. So it's like, calm down, dude. It's not happening to you.
Did he work with Daniel Day-Lewis or something?
Right. Little too method, Gonzo.
Yeah, let's calm down. I mean, people have done... We've seen much worse examples of method acting, but Gonzo, it's never a good road.
Yep, more often than not, it's just a road to a lot of toxicity. I'll never forget Sir Laurence Olivier's one-liner to Dustin Hoffman. My goodness, child, have you ever considered acting?
And also, shout out to good at crafts, lousy at sports.
Weren't we fucking all? Gonzo, just call me a slur next time.
The only sport I'm good at is scuba diving, so and swimming.
It's weird because I'm in great shape. I just do not have coordination. So it's like I could be good at the parts of the sport that don't involve depth perception, but that's most of it.
Anyway, why does Rumpelstiltskin endure? And clearly I don't mean in terms of physical fitness.
Does it? Does it? I'm so happy, River, that you and I had that both prepared. I was like literally waiting for Jazz to ask because I'm going to ask Guz it, and I miss podcasting with you.
I'm in a similar state of mind because I don't even quite know what the point of this story is supposed to be.
I think it's traditional, like, Fey logic bullshit, but we don't teach Fey logic bullshit anymore because everyone decided to fuck the fairies, except badly.
Damn you, Kay Hamilton.
And some of our societies have decided to wholeheartedly embrace the phase. So
Damn you, Sarah J. Maas!
Yeah. If we don't count Shrek Forever After, and I wouldn't.
Count once? Does Rumpelstiltskin endure because of Robert Carlyle? Is that what we're trying to get at?
Watching this, I thought this was going to be the first adaptation of Rumpelstiltskin I've ever seen. And then watching it, I realized these plot points were in Once Upon a Time and was like, wait, I've heard the story of Rumpelstiltskin before?
Yeah.
So no, Rumpelstiltskin does not endure, is the answer.
Well,
I mean, listen, again, for some odd reason, as a child, I decided this was my favorite fairy tale. I don't know. I think it was just purely on the power of Gonzo. That seems like something I would do as a child.
Yes.
So I do know there are several other Rumpelstiltskin adaptations that we could talk about. Again, I already mentioned the Rumpelstiltskin problem. There's a Rumpelstiltskin horror movie. I actually own the story Guild, which is like Marissa Meyer doing her own Rumpelstiltskin story.
Okay.
There's actually quite a lot out there.
I genuinely believe that once we get to a point where there's no young people who remember this movie, who remember Once Upon a Time, or who remember Shrek 4, I genuinely think in 50 years we will reach a point where no one under 30 has heard of Rumpelstiltskin.
I think that won't be the case because Rumpelstiltskin is the women's version of The Devil Went Down to Georgia. It's all about a supernatural being offering you gold in return for and just knowing that you're going to fail this contest when by all the rules of storytelling they are setting themselves up to lose to you.
So then the question is, why does Faust endure?
Yeah, that again falls under Fey logic, and you don't bargain with Fey. And, you know, all of the classic tropes, if you don't give the Fae your name, names have power, you don't bargain with them because you're never going to get exactly what you want and whatever else. And so Fae logic will endure because you can still use Fae for terror. But again, we're not currently, because this rant has been redacted to save space.
To me, what endures is that the chorus of the musical number from this version is a pretty good stim. It is
gotta get that name.
Listen, I will also say, in all seriousness, we are living in a time in which a lot of people are, in fact, giving up the chance to be parents because of money. So I'm not saying that this wouldn't make a decent metaphor for that, but I'm not saying it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, parenthood in this economy?
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, on to the next one. Gonzo finally gets a break after having his meltdown, which is probably for the best.
And Rizzo finally gets to perform.
And we are on to the Emperor's New Clothes. So what's everyone's connection to that?
How embarrassing do I want to be?
Embarrassing!
Hey, Fozzie finally appears too. Fozzie finally shows up.
Okay.
An hour into the movie, Fozzie shows up.
An hour into the fucking movie, Fozzie finally shows
Criminal.
up. No. So, the first time I ever heard The Emperor's New Clothes, it's not a story I heard from my childhood, but I was scrolling through YouTube when the summer after I graduated college, I was staying at my friend's. I was crashing on my friend's couch because I was seeing a concert, but I didn't have it. But we thought I'd have an apartment by then, and it just wasn't working out. So I was crashing on my friend's couch before getting a hotel to see a concert, and I couldn't sleep for some reason because I think they had one too many lights on in their apartment at the time. And I was scrolling through YouTube, and I found one of those like narrated audio stories, like, you know, just some random voice actor reading a story, and it was someone doing a Howl Pendragon impression. And that shit knocked me out. So it did its fucking job.
That is so you. That is so you.
And that's the first time I ever heard Emperor's New Clothes.
That's amazing. Anyone else want to try to top that?
I have no idea, but we are currently in a golden age of Emperor's New Clothes retellings, because I went and Googled
You mean the current U.S. political climate?
Yeah, I had seen a political cartoon of Trump as the emperor before, so I went on Google Images to find it and had to scroll through 7 other political cartoons of Trump as the emperor before I found the one I remembered. I just screenshotted the first couple Google results.
Oh my god. Oh god, and this one is about a dumbass ruler who has a bunch of sycophants around him. Oh no.
Yeah, right. No, because and this kind of already trumps the question of how does this endure. It endures because it finally got adapted to real life.
I am really scared for your country, my dear American friends. I really am.
Oh, I moved to Mexico. Don't worry about me.
It may be a crack house, but it's a crack house that I have friends and family living in.
I don't even live in it, and I have that same feeling, because you're my friends.
I also don't live in it currently. Why do you think I'm hiding in Toronto?
Yep.
Though we are not off the hook, Doug Ford is also an emperor who doesn't have any fucking clothes. Gun.
Agreed. I'm with you there.
That hurts.
Fuck Doug Ford. All my homies hate Doug Ford. Making Fozzie the Emperor is also a choice where it doesn't, I don't think, internally completely work. I do like Robin being the one to call him out. That's kind of cute. You don't get to see Robin a lot.
Did anyone have any other connections to Emperor's New Clothes that doesn't depress us because of the real world?
As with every single one of the stories in here, I was an obsessive reader as a kid. I don't remember when I first saw it, but I had access to all kinds of great books at the library, and I took advantage of that, and I have no idea what age I was when I read this other than very young, and loved the idea that people in charge of things are fucking idiots who have no idea what they're doing.
Like with Midas, I would love for this story to become obsolete.
That would be nice.
I don't like this story still being relevant and a useful allegory.
I get you. I really do. I say this as, sadly, a former sycophant of quite a few emperors without clothes in my early 20s.
Moving right along.
Similar to Grady, I definitely read it a number of times in elementary school, and one particular other adaptation that I remember very distinctly is the Sagwa episode. Do you guys remember Sagwa?
Yes.
Yes,
I
I
don't
do.
remember that episode, but I do remember Sagwa.
But it makes sense that there's an episode, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, Sagwa was a TV show on PBS Kids, based on a book by Amy Tan. It takes place during the Qing dynasty of China, and its full title is Sagwa the Chinese Siamese Cat, and it's just about her and her family living in the palace, and they have this gimmick where they help write the announcements with their tails. It's very cute. She has a little bat friend. They tell fun facts about Chinese history and culture between segments. Very cute little show. And because the emperor character there is kind of a buffoon, it just made sense for them to do an Emperor's New Clothes episode. It was a cute episode, though. Insane, really, but cute.
Agreed. And there is definitely a cuteness to elements of this rendition of Emperor's New Clothes. I mean, having Fozzie playing the part, it's kind of hard to not love that, and the sycophancy of his followers is a lot less horrifying than some real-life sycophancies out there, I will say. I mean, They don't question just putting their slippers on their ears.
I do love our introduction to Fozzie as him telling a bad joke and then instructing his sycophants to laugh.
Yeah.
Admittedly, very please clap moment.
I wish the sycophants in that scene that he demanded to laugh and they agreed because he was in charge were Statler and Waldorf for a fun reversal. That would be funny.
Oh, that'd be insane. That would.
But there's not that many puppets on this production.
That would have been such good revenge. You're so right. Also, I love how the opening is basically opening like Pirelli's Miracle Elixir. Basically,
it's so good,
right?
This is supposed to go. Ladies and gentlemen.
Perfect use of your Rizzo here as a snake oil salesman. I love that.
Rizzo is a snake oil salesman.
Yes.
And also a foreshadowing of Ratatouille.
Tell my weird trivia that I found out about Yolanda while researching this segment.
Yes, Yolanda the Rat. What's up?
Okay, so Yolanda first appears in, obviously, Muppets Take Manhattan. There, she was played by Karen Prell, famously Red Fraggle. An interesting thing happens with female Muppet performers in that they can't make an entire living being Muppet performers because, there's just not that many female puppets played by female puppeteers. So, for example, Karen Prell became an animator out of being a puppeteer. She famously animated Wheatley in Portal 2. But this is the debut of Yolanda's current puppeteer, Julianne Boucher. Yolanda had a bigger role in the ABC show. That's Julianne again. The new pig that Kermit was dating in that show is also Julianne. Outside of Yolanda, probably her best known role is Anko in the English dub of Naruto.
Fascinating. We love VAs.
Or all of the female Altmers in Skyrim.
LMAO!
Including, but not limited to, the grunts if you choose to play as a female Altmer.
Wow.
And fascinating to me, in the Pirates of the Caribbean games and in Disney Infinity, she is the voice of Tiadama / spoilers, Calypso. Although in Kingdom Hearts 3, she was replaced with an actual black actress, Leslie Miller. But yeah, you don't find a lot of people. I mean, like, the Muppets, Naruto, and Skyrim are big cultural juggernauts, and you would not assume that there's anyone who has worked on all three, much less you don't usually get Muppeteers voice acting, period. They don't like being referred to as voice actors because honestly, probably the hardest part of the performance is keeping up your arm that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Having Fozzie be the Emperor is the perfect choice here, in my opinion, because Fozzie is always the butt of the joke. But he's so good-natured and he means well that you don't have to worry about people hating the Emperor. He's just sort of good-natured and dumb, as opposed to being certain other people that we could name.
Yeah.
To quote John Mulaney, he's just shiny and dumb and easy to trick.
And the Emperor in this story is the butt of the joke in two different ways. Ah, waka waka!
Nicely done.
Because he's naked.
He's bare naked.
Yes. Which doesn't make any fucking sense, because Fozzie usually only wears, like, a necktie.
There's the famous joke, good grief, the comedian's a bear. No, I'm not. I'm wearing a necktie.
But the fact that he's wearing underwear, you're just like, that's just Fozzie in underwear. Why? What would have been Fozzie naked would have just been like Fozzie without his necktie.
Yes.
Agreed.
I wish they gave the line to Robin as a callback to the Muppet Show. Good grief, the comedian's a bear. Good grief, the Emperor's bear.
Oh my god.
Shout out to Robin.
Having him have the underpants on is funnier, though.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he's just so easily susceptible of, the fabrics are so fine, you can only see them if you are truly of elegant mind or whatever.
Yeah. Everyone fell for it, except for Robin. Shout out to Robin, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Tiny Tim.
And then he goes back halfway up the stairs.
Yeah, but yeah, I do appreciate they added in the lesson. It's like, hey, maybe you should just think for yourself. What an idea.
What a concept! I'm sending the entire U.S. population back to fucking kindergarten so they learn some critical thinking skills.
There are people in the U.S. with critical thinking skills.
Name one.
Hey!
I mean, yeah.
Other than our friends.
No, I mean, I've met people. It's not, you don't want to generalize a population by the worst of its politics. That's, my wife is Russian, I'm American. There are people who fall for propaganda.
You are not immune to propaganda, but also as a generalized sentiment. I mean, Canada's not also immune to this. And kind of sometimes there are days where I'm like, everyone needs to be sent back to kindergarten and retaught their manners.
I get it. It really doesn't help that the government has been systematically eroding public education for decades, so it's no wonder that it's led to stuff like that.
Yeah, and in regards to that, I was just thinking, because I said this probably owes a lot to fairy tale theater, and when you were talking about other shows retelling stories, I was like, there was Wishbone at the time, and it's just like, these literacy TV shows just don't exist anymore.
It was especially important in the 90s for both literacy and science education programming for kids, because the 90s was one of the worst time periods in our living memory for how badly the education system was being royally screwed over by the government. Like,
I am yelling at No Child Left Behind until I put myself through a wall. George Bush, you will never see heaven.
Interestingly, there is only one political cartoon of George W. Bush as the emperor with no clothes. Would you guys like to see it?
That's way too few.
That's way too fucking few.
Because people fell for the narrative that he was a dumbass puppet being controlled by Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, it's actually a dress-up game that's still available on eBay if you guys want it.
No, thank you. No, thank you, please. And that's why the Emperor's New Clothes and Doors.
I have one request before we move on to the next one. To play off of the Think for Yourself thing, Charlie, I would like you as Fozzie the Bear to say, you're all individuals.
You're all individuals.
I'm not.
All right, final story. What the fuck are the shoes of the elves? I have never fucking heard this story in my life.
Well, damn, I guess it's time for another segment of IRTLDR. But yeah, the elves and the shoemaker. I've heard this story a bunch of times.
Like, it is basically this idea that there's a poor shoemaker, and the elves kind of come to help him out and make shoes for him, and eventually he does wind up repaying their kindness, but, because they are of the Fae, they're not going to be taking typical currency. This was a pretty frequent appearance in my elementary school classrooms, for sure.
And also on Happily Ever After Fairy Tales for Every Child. That one I know for sure, dear listeners.
I have my first familiarities with this story ready. They're weird ones.
Okay, let's hear it.
The first time I would have heard this story was in Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap.
On the one hand, this is very on brand for you. On the other hand, I never would have thought Legend of Zelda would touch this story.
Which is a game based on Fae lore. Basically, there are little people that are apparently always helping out behind the scenes and are the reasons that there's money in the grass in Zelda canonically still to this day. They've never said that is no longer
we
canon.
can justify the Zelda then, I guess.
But there is a side quest in the game where you have to help the Minish help a shoemaker. The second place I heard this story, it's adapted into an episode of Supernatural. I was trying to think, like, when River said they've never heard this story, I was like...
Which episode? If it's after season 7.
Before season 7, hold on.
While Charlie's looking for that, I'll share mine. Again, old, read a lot. The version that I encountered of this originally, they were leaving out milk and honey for the elves that were making the shoes as a gesture of thank you. And then one night they forgot to do that, and then the elves were like, okay, fuck y'all, we're gone.
That's true. There was definitely a version like that. But, so, you could either do the consequences story, or you could do the wholesome story.
So, the episode is titled Clap Your Hands If You Believe. It's the one that introduces leprechauns into the lore, played by Robert Picardo from Star Trek. It is season 6, episode 9, and
I think I usually skip that episode, mostly because I skip most of season 6.
Please, season 6 is so bad. We just finished rewatching it, and the second season 7 started, it was like, oh wait, that's right, we like this show. We forgot.
Season 6 is the we weren't supposed to last this long season, and we hate that we exist season, because we're having to undo everything we ended in season 5. And then season 7 is, we weren't supposed to make it this long, so fuck it, balls to the wall, let's get goofy. But anyway,
sorry.
This is not about Supernatural.
Yeah, we are here to talk about the Elvises and the Shoemaker. Oh, wait.
It's a forced joke, but I like it.
Me too. It was very charming.
So, I was talking about 90s stock jokes. What the fuck was up with the 90s and Elvis? Was it just 30-year cycle?
Yeah,
Probably.
Boomer nostalgia.
Do we talk about NSYNC and Britney Spears and
Yes!
Yes, we
do.
Yes!
Them the way that 90s media talks about Elvis?
Charlie, Charlie, look at your webcam. Don't have to turn it on because I know you're not currently clothed. Look at me dead in my eye when I say this. Yes. As somebody who has only a tertiary connection to Britney and NSYNC, motherfucker, that the fact that millennial fashion trends are coming back in such vibrant force, the fact that we are doing 2008 all fucking over again, violence.
Mm-hmm. One of my Christmas traditions is to remind people of the NSYNC a cappella version of Oh Holy Night.
Exactly. Also, Charlie, literally a couple of weeks ago, everyone was saying it's gonna be May. Trust me.
I think it's funny, though, because try to find a kid in the 90s who cared about Elvis.
Her name was Lilo Pelikai. Next question.
Lilo is 2002!
I actually...
Yes, but she's like 6 in it, so technically she was born in 96.
Yeah, so it's the kids who grew up in the 70s whose parents were huge fans of Elvis, and also Elvis was fucking everywhere in the 70s. When he died, the entire song My Way was Ruin Me Forever because you literally could not escape hearing that song 17 times a day. Elvis was huge. This was written by a generation of people who either grew up as fans of Elvis or grew up as the children of huge fans of Elvis. And it took a while for people to work Elvis out of their system.
Or grew up having to go to school with fans of Elvis, which was my experience with 90s pop.
But anyway, it is a forced joke, but it's also kind of delightful. And, you know, they ended up doing like Elvis history on Muppets Tonight with these guys too. And it was pretty funny. Even as somebody who is highly critical of Elvis's legacy at this point.
Right? And the fact that the big gift they give at the end are sequined Vegas-ready jumpsuits.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Like a remote.
This is the second sound-alike song. They're clearly not trying to write an original melody. It's clearly supposed to sound like Blue Suede Shoes. But the fact that the story is about shoes, I don't know, it works for me. I like it. I love when you get multiple performers to do the same voice. That's something that's always fascinated me, like Rod and Todd and The Simpsons. I love 3 puppeteers all doing Elvis impressions in unison. Speaking of puppeteers doing different voices, as you referenced earlier, we briefly hear what Rizzo would sound like if he were played by Dave Goelz.
Yeah,
because they did not.
Because Steve Whitmire's already in the scene, and they forgot to dub him back in.
Or they just didn't have the budget to do ADR.
Probably not, honestly. It explains certain Muppet character absences, honestly, if it was just because they couldn't afford to do any ADR.
Yeah, because, like, ADR is another acting session, and these people are unionized.
Ain't that nice. Also, I do appreciate how the bit in the beginning where Robin's, like, trying to be all encouraging, but Kermit's just like, dear nephew, you're both kind and nearsighted.
Kermit so very rarely gets to exhibit the same level of, like, that tradition. Like, the Muppets are always 2 inches away from a meaner joke than initially conceived. And Kermit is such a great vehicle for those sorts of gags, but he rarely gets to do it.
Also, Robin just being all eager to, like, you call Mother Goose, I'll write to Santa, and then the Easter Bunny isn't on vacation. It's like, well, I mean, just don't get tricked by that one wolf dressed as Santa.
Well, no, Santa can't do it because, at least from the perspective of Piggy's brothers, Santa blew up earlier.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I'm surprised it didn't get too one note from my point of view, the fact that the elves were Elvis impersonators, because honestly...
Well, it's blissfully short. This is like, they kind of knew they were, like, at the end, and it's a blissfully short sketch.
I think that's what helped.
I love them getting the Elvis jumpsuits and saying thank you very much in unison in response to receiving a gift. Like, that's a good Elvis joke.
Yeah.
Well,
If you have 3 Elvises in your scene and they have to receive a gift according to the narrative, they should all say thank you very much in unison. Thank you very much.
It's so good. I love it.
It's cute. It's a cute way to end it, and of course you ended with a reprise of the musical number, and I think that's the correct choice of ending it.
Yep.
Not a bad way to end it all yet with the Bad Shoe Blues song. That's how they avoid copyright.
Whee!
My preferred Elf/Elvis pun is Elvish Presley, but...
Oh, mercy.
Mine is from Terry Pratchett's Soul Music, where they keep talking about how they think the person who brings, as they call it, music with rocks into the world looks a little elvish. Because I've done this for each story, I have one left to do. It's so heartwarming to see that Kermit's business goes from being financially shaky to being on good footing.
Ah, waka waka! Actually, I didn't hear you. What was the end of that?
Good footing.
Oh, good.
Don't worry, it worked.
So you were going to ask us why the Elves and the Shoemaker endures?
And I guess it doesn't.
It does not. I found out about it while looking up trivia about Minish Cap, and it was like, this is a reference to the famous story. And I was like, not that famous.
I think it also falls under something Fey logic.
Yeah, and I think River has a point of these Fey logic stories are falling out of favor with what we're teaching children. Probably because Fays are not Christian.
Well, being Christian does not stop matters. Again, the Irish are Christian until there's a fairy circle in the middle of the road and they're paving around it.
Yep, can confirm as someone of partial Irish descent.
You think it's sexualizing the fairies that made these Beware of Fairies stories disappear?
Yes. I am almost convinced of it, because there are some fairy stories that take advantage of that. Like, I'm sure there's a dark fae romance out there that takes advantage of the fact that, like, motherfucker, I've read them. Tumblr exists. Whatever. I've read better fae smut on Tumblr than I have in actual published bookstores, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that, like, there is an angle to that where they do get to keep their darker, dangerous edge. But for the most part, people seem to view them as, like,
slutty Tinkerbell tattoo.
Yeah. Or like, we use they're a setting in D&D, and D&D like took a lot of their edge out of them. There's still traces of it in a couple of the creatures in the Feywild, but like it's really up to the DM how much of that edge is still there.
I would love if when I was working hard on something, when I went to bed, little creatures came and finished it and made it better. That would make my job easier.
And I will say, that is what endures about this story to me, beyond just this was my introduction to the concept of Elvis Presley as a pop culture reference. But also, I remember in the beginning of the movie Elf, Bob Newhart mentions there are 3 ways in which an elf can get work. Santa's Workshop, Keebler Elves reference, and then I'm realizing, the first one was a reference to this. You can make shoes while the cobbler is asleep. And they're like, lazy clod. I think it was a reference to this.
It had to be. It had to have been.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's at least partially a wish fulfillment thing. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if you were rewarded for your hard work by having somebody come finish it up for you?
And hey, some classic 50s style rockabilly cover song.
That is also nice. Hey, if there are any elves out there, if you want to help me edit this episode, that'd be amazing.
Hey, do you want to help me finish my novel?
Elves, you can just take over. I'm ready to retire.
Just don't forget the milk and honey.
Very, very true. But all right, before we wrap this second anniversary party up, why do the Muppets endure?
Because some of us are queer.
Very true.
Because I sometimes need to feel the entire human spectrum of emotion via a green piece of felt with ping pong ball eyes.
No, wait, it's a green piece of foam rubber with ping pong ball eyes. Thank you very much.
I remember Molly Lewis, my favorite musician in the world, was talking about how sometimes she'll meet people who don't like the Muppets, and her response to them is, I guess you don't need non-binary representation in your life.
Yes. People tell me they never see the Muppets, and I immediately go, did Kermit kill your father?
Yep. To me, that's a big part of why the Muppets endure is being both queer and neurodivergent. There's so much relatability in interacting with those characters, or at least seeing them interact with each other, rather. Not to mention, they were one of my first childhood hyperfixations. That's kind of hard to let go of. You know, also they're just such timeless and delightful characters. I mean, it's kind of hard to go wrong with the Muppets. Even when the Muppets make something that isn't very good, you can always tell the performers are giving it their all, and that accounts for so much.
On my dating profile says, please talk, strong bed, email, Weird Al, or Muppets to me.
Bless.
And as for me, my theory is as simple as the fact that Jim Henson and the people who helped create these characters with him knew that you can take characters like these and drop them in literally any story and find a way to make it work.
And I recently listened to the What a Cartoon episode on Wonder Over Yonder, and they talked about how there was a trend in the 70s of hippies growing up into people who have to have jobs, and some of those being artists and making content that fits those hippie sensibilities, but for the children of the 70s and 80s. With this and with Sid and Marty Krofft, you know, HR Puff and stuff. And so, Jim Henson said the goal of Fraggle Rock was to achieve world peace. So I think the Muppets endure because we want world peace, I guess, is what I was trying to say.
And also when
Kermit's trying.
Yep, and there's one maxim from Fraggle Rock that in particular makes me think, oh my god, Jim Henson, you're such a hippie. And that's when Cantus the Minstrel says, everything's important. Either that or nothing is. I prefer the former.
Wise words.
Yes.
One day I will listen to the end of Magic Store and not weep like a baby.
Life's like a movie, write your own ending.
Keep believing, keep pretending we've done just what we set out to do. Thanks to the lovers, the dreamers, and you.
Like, this is definitely not the best of what the Muppets have to offer, but I still consider it like a warm hug from a childhood friend.
Yeah,
like,
I don't believe in the worst of what the Muppets have to offer. I don't think there is such a thing.
My official review of it's very cute, if a little uneven. But I'd rather live in a reality where it exists than one where it doesn't.
Yeah, right. I think we need to just Disney has no idea what to do with the Muppets. I think there just needs to be
First of all, pay your puppeteers.
Yeah, pay your puppeteers. Yes. But I think there just needs to be more low-budget, uneven Muppet stuff. Like, it doesn't all have to be, 2011 Muppets.
The Muppet Show handshake the original, Monty Python Flying Circus. So many jokes a minute that if even two of them land, it's a success.
Exactly. Quantity over quality. That's very much, to me, what makes the Muppets work so well.
And I think the other thing is, again, we kind of got to start doing the not Muppets as themselves. We got to do Muppets as characters movies because, again, Jim's gone and he's never coming back.
You could make 1 million of these. The Muppets could fit in any story. And you don't need to give the kids context to who the Muppets are in that case.
I was about to say, that's part of why I love all of those memes about, fantasy Muppet castings of remakes of movies, It's just such a fun thing to think about.
Like I said, I had a dream about one recently, and I wanted to share it at the end, if I may.
What is it?
Go for it.
I'll go real quick. Muppet the Birdcage, okay? Wait.
No. I see the vision.
Wait. Let me tell you, because you're gonna love this. Okay, Kermit as Armand, obviously. Robin Williams' character. Okay, but as Albert, okay, his husband. Fozzie when he's out of drag, but Miss Piggy as Starina, his drag performance.
Fucking genius.
Valid.
Oh my god.
And there you go.
No. Hang on. Is the politician the obligatory human cast member? Or is the politician Sam the Eagle?
Yes. That's a very good question. What would work thematically is if all of the Miami queer scene were Muppets and then all of the friends and family of the conservatives were humans. That being said, Sam the Eagle was born to play that role, so I think he should just inexplicably be a Muppet on the other side.
Yeah, no, I like this. I like this a lot.
And then, I mean, Pepe the King Prawn as... I mean, I don't even need to say... Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm sold. And cross fingers that that one Ted Lasso actor gets to actually spearhead that Muppet Pride and Prejudice, please.
Does Brett Goldstein want to do a Muppet Pride and Prejudice?
Is it Brett Goldstein? I know he's like the really handsome Ted Lasso actor.
I guess in the meantime, we shall just have to make do with this.
Yeah. Give me another Muppet project or give me death.
And if you haven't seen this one, it's on YouTube, it's on archive.org. It's a little over an hour of your time. Go watch it.
Disney, you better put Muppet Vision on Disney Plus, I swear to God.
Put more Muppet stuff on. It's egregious that this isn't on Disney Plus. It doesn't make any sense.
It really, really doesn't. But until we can plug this on Disney Plus, who has pluggables for themselves?
I'm SnakeBitCat on most of the socials, and as far as anthology movies based on classic fairy tales go, this is so much better than Santa Claus Meets the Ice Cream Bunny.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm Charley. I have been doing improvised fan dubs. I'm the creator of Real-Time Fan Dub, and I've been doing a weekly real-time fan dub of Delicious in Dungeon / Dungeon Meshi. That's every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on picardo.tv /realtime fan dub. We are dubbing an episode of Dungeon Meshi, and then highlights for it are coming out on my Tumblr and TikTok, which are just my name, Charlie Marlowe, every Thursday. If that doesn't interest you, go watch more Muppet stuff, please. And if that doesn't interest you, go watch the Fairy Tale Theater with Jeff Goldblum as the Big Bad Wolf, please. It's so good.
Well said. Well, to find me online, you can find me at Leif Bradshaw Music on Facebook or Leif Bradshaw Sings on Instagram, where I'm finally deciding to pluck up the courage to start doing a little bit of self-promo on those pages so they're not dead anymore. Yay!
Yay!
So that's a start. Also, I am hosting my own podcast, thankfully with better quality audio than this, called The Disney Outlands, where I talk about obscure material of Disney, that is to say, Disney properties not found on Disney Plus, where we explore the lost and forgotten, the unloved and unappreciated. Yes, including this. This is probably something that we'll discuss.
If you do Eloise at Christmas time, tell me.
And also, I'm starting to ramp up a career as a voice actor these days, so you can find me on Casting Call Club if you want to hire me for any indie projects where you're looking for some voiceover people. I've already got a couple of projects under my belt already, and I'm really excited for them.
Congrats.
Hell yeah. You can find me on Blue Sky at Dreams Rebel. You can technically still find me on Twitter at Dreams Rebel. You can find me on my own website at blog.filmlion.online, where I'm trying to do the great MCU rewatch, though it technically stalled out at Thor. Though I'm trying to get back to it, I swear to God. And you can find me as the host of The Straights Aren't All Right, a podcast where I gather a bunch of queers together, make them watch straight rom-coms, and try to answer the question, are the straights, okay? You can find that wherever pods are cast, or on Blue Sky at aren'tallrightpodcom.
I was on the Santa Claus 2 episode.
Yeah!
And for the first hero's call to action in quite some time, what better thing to plug than the Sesame Workshop? While Sesame Street will still go on, thanks to Netflix of all things. Again, do not squander this goodwill, Netflix. But that doesn't mean they don't still need some help. So through the Sesame Workshop, they create media, playful learning, and community engagement to help children grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. And you can check the Support Us link at sesameworkshop.org. Let's make sure that the legacy of Jim Henson never fucking dies no matter what, okay? And you can find me at Faye Riviera on all the socials. And if you would like to help us reach the next chapter of our story, and hopefully never have a 2-month hiatus ever again, please consider donating to our Patreon, our Ko-Fi, or the Support the Show link below. Or if you'd like to support us through non-financial means, you can also rate and review us on the podcatcher of your choice. That does, in fact, help us. You can follow this show on Blue Sky and technically Twitter at IER Podcast. And please just spread the word about our show, because much like these stories, this podcast lives or dies on whether or not people know about them.
White sequin jumpsuits?
Yeah.
Rizzo, white sequin jumpsuits are not in the story.
They are now. You see, thanks to those elves, the shoemaker and his nephew lived happily ever after.
Yes, but what about the elves? What happened to the elves?
Well, inspired by the white sequin jumpsuits, the elves decided to relocate to Las Vegas. And today they are huge stars who played a big room at the Palace. 2 shows daily, no cover, no minimum.
Well, now you got a new prescription, makes you boogie all night. Boogie on the basement till the broad daylight. Rockabilly baby gonna shout hooray. You're the one to save me from a bad shoe day.
You might even say the elves left shoe business for show business.
Oh, Rizzo, you're unbelievable.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, friends, that's all for now. Until next time, so long. Bye-bye. Talk to you later.
Bye. See ya.